Hello, welcome to this week's YouTube show. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm going to try and keep these intros a bit shorter because I do waffle on a bit. But I just wanted to say thank you so much to everybody for last week's episode, for all the lovely comments that you left after Amelia was on and Himesh and Orlando. Really appreciate it. I've got two guests for you today. A composer coming up, Patrick Doyle, who I'll talk about in a second. But first up, Mr. David Dobkin, who is also this week's podcast episode. So on Soundtracking this week, you can hear David in his entirety with loads of great music talking about his new film, which is all about Eurovision. Now, do not let that put you off because he has made a fantastic film. It stars Will Ferrell and Rachel McAdams, and they are both exceptional, as is Dan Stevens, in a role that I don't think anybody could have ever predicted. It's phenomenal. And in this interview, you'll hear David talk about how he managed to convince Dan to take on the role of this brilliant character. And if you want a premise to the film is about Will and Rachel play these two Icelandic characters whose dream has been to win the Eurovision Song Contest. Thus ensues hilarity. I kid you not, I think it's a brilliant film. I've watched it a couple of times and there are certain scenes in the film that I've watched were definitely double figures. And David has got a fantastic track record when it comes to making me laugh. Wedding Crashers is one of his films, one of many films. But you can hear him talk in greater detail on the podcast this week. But here we've got a lovely little kind of delve into creating Eurovision, getting the cast on board, getting everybody on board with it. And he was an absolute treat to catch up with. So sit back and enjoy the wonderful David Dobkin. Listen, congratulations on Eurovision. I've got to get it its full title: Eurovision Song Contest: The Story of Fire Saga. It was. Do you know what? It was just what I needed. It was just the perfect tonic of so many things. So, David, thank you so much.
Oh yeah, I'm so glad to hear that. I'm hoping that right now it feels like an odd time to be putting out a movie, so I'm really happy that it could create some levity and some fun and some warmth for a couple hours.
Ever since we were children, we've had one dream.
Winning the Eurovision Song Contest.
All right, everyone. I am Lars. This is Sigrit. We are Fire Saga.
Who wants to hear a Eurovision song?
Where did the idea for this come from? Because the idea of making a kind of, I mean, I don't even know how to describe the film really, because anything I come up with doesn't really do it justice.
Oh, I love that. You know, look, Will has been a fan of Eurovision for 18 years.
Which is mental.
He is I know, I love it. But, you know, his wife was Swedish. I'm sure you've heard the story. He goes to, he lives in Sweden 3 months of the year during the summer. And usually he's landing there in the late May or middle of May and getting there. And Eurovision was on every year. And he fell in love with it. And he pursued the rights on his own. He actually got the rights from the EBU after showing up there like 3 or 4 times, years in a row. They finally realized he was serious, and they gave him the rights to it. And then he brought them to Netflix, and then brought them to me, luckily. And I read the script. You know, when I got the script, I did not know what Eurovision was.
Where did you start then?
I read this. I started by saying, no, I don't want to do a movie with a song contest. And then my agent was like, well, Will is sending it to you. He wants you to read it. And so I read it, and the script was really fun and really kind of crazy and absurdist. Mm-hmm. But I still didn't know that it was a real contest. And I said, well, I think this is a really fun script, but we may have to change the title. I don't think it's a good title. And then my agent was like, it's a real thing. I think you should go on the internet and take a look. So I Googled it, and I was shocked. And I sat there for a couple of hours and just watched all of the finalists of the last like 5-6 years, and was pretty blown away. There's nothing like this in America. It's so big. There's no music contest that is put on in front of 20,000 people live in an arena. I mean, it is such a huge thing to pull off. I was shocked and amazed and a little bit concerned how we were going to do it.
Yeah.
which going to Eurovision in Tel Aviv solved all those problems because we could shoot the real audience and use all of the live real stuff. And the EBU was so supportive of us coming and doing that. But the thing that was really amazing to me was that, you know, this is an event that's bigger than the Super Bowl in America, which is the biggest event in America. It's, you know, almost 30% larger. And how could I have never heard of it? I just was amazed.
Casting this was I mean, the casting is brilliant. Rachel and Will's chemistry, it's kind of really perfect in terms of the way they play these characters that have this kind of real childlike innocence to life, really, and whatever is kind of thrown at them.
Yeah,
it's really brilliant and not easy to kind of convey, I think, as well.
They both have such sweetness in them as people, and I always, you know, when obviously Will was already cast, and when I read it and I read the character, I was like, oh, he'll find such a lovely way to do this. You know, I mean, everything's, you know, he has a way of being acerbic and also lovable at the same time. So I knew Will was great, and I loved the character. I felt it was very different than anything I'd seen him do for quite some time, and it required some real acting scenes, and it required, you know, him singing, which he does well, and all kinds of crazy stuff. But Rachel ended up being like the perfect person because she is also a really nice human being. Just she's got a sweetness and a warmth inside of her, and as you said, a childlike innocence. Like, you can believe these two actually bumped around with each other for a couple decades without getting into a real conversation about their relationship. That's the key. That's the whole, like, do you believe that? Do you go on that ride? And somehow you do. And they really had a wonderful chemistry. And by the way, Will and Rachel, you know, Rachel had never sang, had never played guitar, and had never played piano. And she, from the minute she took this on, because she's like a total pro, you know, she wants everything. She, you know, she learned to sing, she learned to play piano, she learned to play guitar. She does all of her own instrumental playing, and she sings a large part of the movie as well, because she, you know, Molly came in and we blend. And by the way, we actually re-recorded Rachel at the end of the movie, going back in the studio because she got so much better. She kept getting better and better as we went.
Yeah.
And it was funny because, like, the day that we shot her writing the song, she had never sang out loud for me. And she kept saying, you know, I don't think I can do this. I don't think I can do this. And I was like, well, if you can't, then we'll get Molly to sing over your parts. And after the first take, she sang so beautifully. I came in and I'm like, you're such a liar. Like, every time you always do that to me. You're like, I don't know, this doesn't make sense to me. And then she nails it. And then Dan Stevens.
Oh my God, he was my other one I wanted to mention.
I can't even say, I don't know if there's ever been an actor that I cast that overperformed in a movie this much. I mean, overperformed as in, like, overperformed beyond my expectations. And you know, we had a lot of big name people that wanted to come in and play with Will.
Yeah.
And I sat down with Will in Tel Aviv when we were shooting in Tel Aviv at the finals. And I was like, what about Dan Stevens? He's like, is that the dude that dies in the car crash? I'm like, yeah. He's like, he's great. I'm like, he's also in this TV show Legion, which is a TV show that was, I'm sure, genius, but didn't make a lot of sense to me. But somehow Dan was so centered in a weird, I just said, I think this guy is amazing. And I think the love triangle will work great. And you know, he just is an actor that seems like he's just still starting out, and I was really curious about. So it was a bit of a courting process with him. He loves Will. He was unsure. We had a breakfast. We had a lot of emails. We had some phone calls. And I was like, man, how do I get this guy in? And it was very funny because Tabitha Duomo, who choreographed the movie and is in America, she's a huge choreographer. She sent me this video of the first rehearsal to Lion of Love with her people in LA. She's like, this is my first idea of the choreography, which is what you see in the movie. And I flip it to Dan and I go, I don't think I wrote anything into it. I think I just sent it to him. I think I just said, here's the choreography. And I was like, if this guy has any questions about it, I don't think this is going to be the right movie for him.
Yeah.
And he sends me this text back. He goes, "I'm on my way to the gym right now." It was so funny.
That's brilliant.
And you know, the next thing he said to me was like, "Is it okay if I never wear a shirt in the film?" And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "I'll have jackets, but I never want to wear a shirt." I'm like, "Okay."
That's great. I love those weird things that people see into the kind of, you know, the creation of their characters. Those little things. It's
that
like,
was his
yeah,
thing.
helps them kind of,
Yeah.
get there.
And he was just so great. And you know, he just is a monster, and audiences have flipped out over him in this movie. Great.
Really
The
funny.
test screen, he's one of the highest rated. I mean, you don't normally have people rate as score through the roof the way he did.
This is Eurovision.
You have to watch that guy. He is a sex player.
Hey, looking good. Sigrit, very beautiful voice.
Thank you.
We are a duo that will never be separated.
George Michael said something about other Wham guy. No one even knows his name.
Andrew Ridgeley.
And I think that that's the brilliant thing about the script and the performances is that it's not taken, pardon my French, it's not taking the piss out of Eurovision. It's kind of, you know, it means so much to these characters. And so getting that tone right, I can't imagine, it's just quite precise.
I love that you said that. That was a really, really big part of when I took the movie. I had a conversation with Will. I said, God, I feel like when you do something like this, you should be making the movie for the people that love it. And I was already falling in love with it. So I was like, I don't really want to make fun of it, even though it's campy. I was like, first of all, you can't out Eurovision. You can't get weirder and stranger and crazier and also more emotional. And like the blend of what that tone is so strange and so specific.
Yeah.
I mean, like whether it's, you know, Lordy winning with that crazy getup, which we homage, to, you know, Salvador, who was just a beautiful song with a piano in his voice that his sister wrote. I mean, it goes from the most big, explosive performances to the most personal, intimate, emotional stuff. And there's nothing that does that. And but I really, you know, we spoke about the tone, and I said, you know, I never want to be making fun of the event or really fun of the people in the event. I think I just want to set a comedy at the event.
What's that?
Oh, you are going to love this. Come. What's going on?
Oh, this is a song-along.
A song-along?
Have you been to a song-along?
No.
Oh, baby, come with me. Come to a song-along.
No, yes.
Let's go.
There's a moment in the film as well, which is brilliant, which is this medley with all these participants.
Yes.
Oh my God, I've rewatched that scene about 40 times. It's so good. And it goes from like Cher into Black Eyed Peas and a bit of Ray of Light in there. And it's so good.
Yeah.
It's
that,
just,
you know, that was in the script. It was written that there was a song along, which I thought was so funny. Even in the script, it was like everything was a little off and weird. And it said, you know, it had something about hopefully, you know, stars of our movie and stars of past would all kind of show up at this thing. So I had to pick some music for that. And I went back and kind of zeroed in on songs that I loved that felt Euro to me. As in, like, they could have been hits in Europe and in America. And that's how I got to that. You know, I thought that Cher song, which was a music video I almost directed way back in the day.
Oh, wow.
I always loved that song. And Madonna, I'm a big fan of. And then, you know, having to go to ABBA because it's ABBA, and Celine because it's Celine. And then the Black Eyed Peas was a bit of a curveball, but I love that song so much. That's right. We were clearing I Got a Feeling, and we hadn't cleared it yet. And they were a little bit like, what are you doing? And how are you using it? And we weren't even done mixing the song yet. I mean, creating the song. And Will Ferrell bumped into will.i.am at a restaurant in London. And he said, oh, hey, we want to use I Got a Feeling. And he was like, sure. So literally the next day I was like, well, will.i.am says it's okay. I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, can you please call very quickly and clear the song? But, you know, I wanted to create one of those moments that was like in, you know, musical movies, but done with like a disco kind of modern groove underneath it, into a dance thing that had a big climactic payoff in the end, but it's still telling story during it, by the way, but a climactic payoff that, you know, along the lines of like what the Wedding Crashers montage was, like something that just really built and gave the audience almost like a musical set piece of sorts.
Well, it's amazing when you think of the artists that you've worked with on the music video side of things as well, you know, an incredible collection.
It's always such a pleasure. I mean, it's amazing the thing that's always scary about music videos is you love these songs and you love these artists. You're like, there's only one shot for you to ever put visuals to it. And it seems like you have to do justice to the song. You have to really find a way to take what they were expressing and make it amplified and magnified for the viewer to experience, which is movies too.
But people like Tupac and, you know, and
that was unbelievable. I'm very, very lucky that I got that experience. And he was ballsy that he picked me to make those two videos with him. I was a kid that had basically almost done nothing. And he liked what I wrote, and I met him in person, and he's a very smart guy, Tupac. He's incredibly intelligent. He almost was a Jekyll Hyde character. Not as if one side was good or bad, but there were two very different personalities, his street personality and his actor intelligence, kind of, you know, a son of a Black Panther. And he was just so bright. One of the smartest people I've ever worked with. But he saw me, some long-haired, ponytailed kid, and he gave me a shot. You know, I was 23 years old, and
wow,
that was an unbelievable experience. And videos carried me through so much of my career at different moments, you know, really important moments.
What are you doing?
I just want my ding-dong to look bigger than what is really there.
Smart.
Yeah.
I could do a camel.
Do a classic camel. It's never out of style.
Yeah.
Listen, I could chat to you for hours, and I hope we get a chance to do this again at some point if you're across the UK or whatever.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for your film, because as I said, it's just what I needed right now, and you've done a brilliant and beautiful job, and it's a pleasure to chat to you. Thank you so much,
Thank
David.
you. Bless you.
David Dobkin's talking about, Tupac there, and before that, Eurovision. Please go and watch it. It's really funny. If you're feeling like in any way, shape or form, you know, anxious, feel like you need to laugh, go and watch Eurovision. It will just cheer you right up. And if you're looking for something to watch with the kids, then go and watch Artemis Fowl. It's Kenneth Branagh's adaptation of the hugely successful kids book, and we watched this as a family and we had a really great experience watching this film. And it's been composed by Patrick Doyle, who has a long-standing relationship with Kenneth Branagh. He's done so many of his films, including you know, Kenneth's Thor, but Patrick's also worked with a huge amount of directors, filmmakers over the years, and he's a pretty legendary composer. I apologise now if I sound more Scottish in this interview. Patrick is a fellow Scot, and so I always find that when I'm in the company of other Scots, I become more Scottish. So I'm afraid this does actually come with subtitles. You can switch subtitles on if you want. So if you're having trouble understanding us, switch on the subtitles. But sit back, and what a treat he was to spend time with virtually. I can't wait to do it in person. This is the brilliant Patrick Doyle. Okay. Listen, it was so lovely to get the chance to talk to you, because you've been around my world for so many years with your incredible music that you've, you know, been making for years and across so many different films. That's what I love about the work that you do. And I watched Artemis Fall yesterday with my two boys. I've got two boys who are 7 and 11.
Oh, perfect.
Perfect, exactly.
Oh yeah, a great age for it.
So great. And again, working with Sir Kenneth Branagh. You guys got a long-standing working relationship with that. Yeah. But with that, can we start with Artemis Fowl, if you don't mind, diving into it a bit, because it's a film that's got so many kind of little sort of themes to it, almost, in terms of the film, not particularly the music, but it's obviously got that kind of Celtic twist to it. It's got adventure to it. It's got lots of lovely elements to it that I wondered if they were great for you to kind of to grab onto when you were thinking of score.
Yeah, it's a very contemporary picture. The look of it's contemporary, although it has all this incredible world of magic and fairies and
this other world that appears in throughout it. But my initial, when I read the script, I initially thought it'd be a wonderful opportunity for a fusion between the world of rock music and Celtic music. Not for the first time has it been done.
Yeah.
I thought this would be a very good opportunity because some real rock and roll moments, especially when you see Judi Dench's character,
Oh, Emerald Goddess.
That's right. Yeah. And, it's a great opportunity. We got some electric guitar going on there. She rocks. So the film does rock. And also, I was looking for a very good fiddle player.
Yeah.
This fiddle player who could play a lot of those fast-moving figures, as well as sounding Celtic, sort of close mic recording technique. I found this girl called Zoe Conway, and I was so inspired by playing that I ended up writing the main theme for Artemis Fall and his father. The main theme sort of sprung from hearing her play, really.
Wow.
She's an astonishing player. Bill Whelan has written a violin concerto for her, who composed Riverdance. So she was great fun. She flew over from Ireland. So that was great. So the fusion of Celtic and rock became quite a cool score. And, I suppose I'm always keen to keep my scores as contemporary as possible and to move, with the times. And so it's a great opportunity to have that fusion. Yeah.
That's the thing as well. When you look at the directors, we've been talking a lot about Kenneth Branagh, but when you look at the directors that you've worked with over your career, it's extraordinary. Brian De Palma with Carlito's Way, and
I know
Alfonso Cuaron with Great Expectations and stuff. And I imagine with every different director as well, everybody works differently, don't they? And everybody has their own way of being creative and their own needs and wants. But is that a nice thing? Is that a nice part of the job of that kind of unknown and stepping in, working with a new director or a new person?
Yes, I suppose it demands a certain kind of confidence and assurance, and the more experienced you are, the more you have that. But there's always that insecurity and that the artist in you, without sounding too pretentious, that is anxious. Because unless there's a certain degree of anxiety, then you never really do your best. But yes, it's a challenge seeing different, working with different directors. I always look forward to. I have a real need for change, as I said earlier, and it is fascinating to work in different ways. They all have their own ways of working, but usually at the end they can sense your passion and enthusiasm for it, and if you're really immersed in it and giving it your all, they're always. I'm always surprised at how some of the basic things of Mike Newell said, for example, who did directed Harry Potter. I worked with Mike and Donnie Brasco with Mike said, "You've actually read the script. You've actually know the story." I thought, but that's my job, He was just so enthused and so delighted that I actually got the picture. I thought, well, if you're reading something, have very strong impressions of something, and as I said earlier, even with Ken, I will speak up and say, "What do you think?" I'll suggest things and throw in some ideas, and directors love that as long as it's backed by a real knowledge of the story and the narrative, and then the see you've done your homework. I remember with Brian De Palma, I said to him, "Oh, I love this shot here. It reminds me of the Edward Hopper painting." And he says, "You're catching all my references, Patrick." And I was like, "Oh God, maybe I shouldn't say that." And he goes, "No, that's fine." I was like, "Well, he knows his Hopper." So either you own up to knowing that, or they see, well, he's done his homework in life.
Yeah.
And that's what I say to all these young budding composers. Is that you've got to go to theatre, you've got to go to museums, you've got to read a lot, you've got to do all these things, because it allows you to do all these disparate and changing films. And if you bring all that general interest that you have in life in terms of the world of art, smart people pick up on it very quickly, as you know.
I loved Brave as well. Oh man, I mean, I felt like there were so many parts of it, you know, growing up in a wee fishing village in Scotland as well. I was like, I was Merida for most of my life. Do you know what I mean? Get me out!
I can imagine you. Other
Just
plans.
missing the red hair. Do you know what I mean?
Other
But it
plans.
was, yeah, absolutely. But hearing you talk about that film and creating that score and the magic that you kind of sprinkled with the score that you created for that, it sounded like you had a lot of fun making that score.
Well, the filmmakers were amazing, and Pixar are amazing, and they brought me over there, and I didn't realize they were what's the word? When someone's what's the word? It's got my head. What's the word? Wooing me. They were wooing me to do the picture, and I'm thinking, what? I'll pay you to do the picture. No, so they brought me in and they showed me all. They brought me into this room. I had 3 meetings with them before we decided we're doing this, and they brought me into a room, and there was bits of Scotland. There was a bit of a silver birch tree. There was stones. There was heather. There was all sorts of elements of, and I completely burst into tears because I was in San Francisco, and I was like a big sob. I thought, I was so touched. These pictures of them, and you know, standing in the water and lying in the soaking heather, and bits of moss. And I remember I was just so moved that because you don't realize how deep rooted your upbringing is until you're away from home, and it's a bit of a cliche, and then people show you all the love and respect for your culture. It's a bit overwhelming, really. So it was a great experience, and yes, it was full of magic, and they were open for ideas and certain words. I helped with some of the lyrics, and I was saying, I can find something more Scottish than that. He kept saying, is that a bad word or is that a Scottish word? Proper Scottish word. Gallus is a Scottish word. You know, there was like, to be trusted people.
Yeah.
Because Billy Connolly.
Yeah, exactly. With the big yin in there, you have to be careful.
You're thinking, is this? Anyway, so no, but they were just fantastic people. I was like, I'm so proud to be involved in that score. And we did a live performance at Celtic Connections last year with the orchestra, the BBC Scottish Symphony Orchestra. That was amazing. I introduced it, wrote a wee introduction, I introduced the orchestra to all the kids in the audience and the adults, and that was a great experience.
What made you want to write for film, to compose? Because I know you studied music, but taking that step into what was the thing?
Well, it was never my plan, but I was always acutely aware of music and film and music and drama. And I would always sort of do fake scores for fun at the academy with my friends, you know, at parties and stuff. And I would reenact imaginary scenes from movies and stuff with the music. I suppose looking back in it, and it seemed inevitable, really, only in retrospect. But I just so happened when I met Kenneth Branagh, he was doing a film, Henry V, and it was the first time and the last time I've ever lobbied to do a film. It was very nerve-wracking, but we got there. And it wasn't my game plan, but it was always I was always passionate about film and always very, very tuned into how the music and the drama work together. I remember very, very early when a traveling troupe came, the Glasgow Theatre about Glasgow came to my high school, and they only had a tape recorder. It was an excerpt from a Bertolt Brecht play, Galileo, and they put on this tape recorder, an old Grundig, and started acting with sort of Renaissance music playing. And I thought, I completely buy this now. I was transported, and I was more interested in who chose the music and why this worked so well when they were literally 2 feet from you. I mean, I thought I'd be, as I say in Scotland, I'd be totally affronted, but in fact, I wasn't. And I thought I couldn't believe how these people weren't affronted. But again, from a very early age, I was more interested in the music and how it interacted. So it's always been there.
I remember there's a real beautiful sensitivity as well in the score for A United Kingdom, Amma Ashante's film. She's a wonderful filmmaker as well. That was just the subtleties in that score I thought were beautiful. Just really.
Well, she is a fabulous director, and really, I think is a really, really strong person, and very, very absolutely decisive, and knows exactly what she wants. And I love that. I love a completely this is what I want. I don't want that. I wanted this one. It's just great. It's fabulous directing. It's really strong, and very smart ideas, and indisputable. Well, that's great. That's a great point of view, and really a great collaborator. No, I loved working with her, and she's a really a proper filmmaker.
Yeah.
Proper, the real deal.
Patrick, I could talk to you for hours. It's so lovely. It's
Pleasure.
so great. Hopefully we get to do it in person at some point as well. Because I've got another like 45 films I want to talk to you about.
It's hard to believe I've done so many of them.
I would be here for days, as you know, because you wrote them. But listen, congratulations on Artemis Fall, the latest one that we get to enjoy, and it's a brilliant film. It really, and I love the use of voices in there as well. There's a few brilliant use of voices in the score as well, which I really enjoyed.
Yes. That was great fun. A privilege to work in it, and it was I must say about Disney, the music department in Disney, for all the years I've worked, over 30 years, they're incredibly supportive of composers and scores. They really they place a great value on music. You could tell by the legacy they've left, but they are so supportive. So you could never work for a better studio. Really, it's been fabulous.
Amazing. Patrick, you take care. It's so lovely to chat to you. Stay safe.
All the best.
Take care. Thank you so much.
All the best. Pleasure.
You
My
too.
pleasure.
Bye-bye.
All the best.
Oh, it was brilliant. I kind of just want to go and have a cup of tea and a bit of shortbread with Patrick Doyle. Loved him to bits. Patrick will also be a full-length feature of the podcast in the coming weeks, but this week's episode is with David Dobkin talking about Eurovision, amongst many other things. So please do go and subscribe on your usual podcast provider, I should say. I'll be back next week. You heard Patrick talking about Amma Asante there, and she's going to be on the podcast in a couple of weeks, which I can't wait for. Been desperate to talk to her for years, actually. I'm a big fan of what she does, and most recently she has directed a couple of episodes of Mrs. America that's on BBC Two. So you should I think it starts on Wednesday, the 7th of July, I think. So go and check it out when it starts, but it's well worth it. So she'll be coming up in the next couple of weeks, both on this and on the podcast. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. Please make sure you subscribe, leave a comment, tell your friends, do all that kind of thing. But in the meantime, stay safe, look after each other. Loads of love.